Hi boys and girls, we're going to take a look at our assignment from yesterday. So if you remember, we were looking at factor of 4 or using 4 as a factor. So our assignment was to do problems 1 through 19. I happened to change the problems while we were in our meeting because we didn't get through as many problems as I'd like to. So I wanted to get started with number 9 and move on to number 10. So number 10 through 19, I asked you to draw an array using your grid paper or grid, your laminated grid, and you could use that to help you with your finding the product. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to start with number 10. So if you look at number 10, our problem was, our equation was 4 rows with 8 in each row. So 4 times 8, we want to know the product using our factors. We know that the 4 tells us how many rows that we are going to have. So it's a 4-row array. And we want 8 in each row. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And we're going to close that up to show our square units as an array. So we have 4 rows with 8 in each row. Now, one thing that we talked about yesterday was how can I, when you have factors that are larger, how can we use a smaller or 2 smaller arrays or 2 other expressions to help us find 4 times 8? So for example, one of the problems that we worked on yesterday was how can I use 2 times 6 to help me find 4 times 6? Well, in this particular case, we could use 2 rows of 8, and if we know what 2 rows of 8 is, we would get 16 because 8 plus 8 is 16. 8 plus 8 in this row is 16. And if we know what another 2 rows of 8 is going to be, which would be 16, here are my 4 rows with 8 in each row. So when I use this to help me find my product, I know that 16 and 16 is going to give me 32. So 4 rows of 8 is going to be 32. I almost put 38. All right. Number 11 is 3 rows of 8, or 3 times 8. Now, since we know that 4 times 8 is 32, we could just subtract one of these rows of 8 here, and that would give us 3 times 8. So really what I could say is 2 times 8 and 1 times 8. And if I know 2 times 8, which is 16, I could add another group of 8 because this is 8 plus 8 plus 8, right? And 2 times 8 is 16. And 1 times 8 is, of course, 8, because I only have 1 row of 8. And if I put those together, when I add the 16 squares into the 8 squares, I would have 24 squares. There's 24 square units in that array. Number 12 is 4 rows of 3. So 4 rows with 3 in each row. Somebody mentioned today that you could do 2 times 6 and 3, or excuse me, 2 times 3 and 2 times 3. And if I know what 2 times 3 is, I know that that's 6. So now that I have my 4 rows of 3, this is 6, this part is 6, and together that gives me 12 square units. Number 13, actually let's skip to number 14, and as you're checking these, be checking along and making sure that you are using your array. let's say 9 times 6. So 9 rows, this is a pretty large amount. 7, 8, 9, and I can do by 6, so that would be 3 and 3. And if I wanted to break this up into smaller parts or easier rows to calculate, I could use maybe 5 times 6 and 4 times 6, because remember, you have 9 rows and there's 6 in each row. So if I used 5 rows first for 5 times 6, this part is going to be my 5 times 6, and we know how to count by 5s. So we know that this part of our array is 30, and if I take the other rest of my 4 rows of 6 to make up my 9 rows of 6, this is 24. And when I take the 30 squares from this top part of my array and I take the 24 squares from this bottom part of my array, I end up adding those together to get 54. So 9 times 6, 9 rows of 6 is going to give me 54 square units. So this is a larger one. This is going to really help you when we start working on what we call the distributive property. So really think about knowing how to break this up into smaller arrays. 4 times 4, so for number 15, we have 4 rows with 4 in each row. And if you notice, since these are the same number of squares going down and the same number of square units going across, this is actually a square. So we have 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4. So 2 groups of 4 would be 8. Another 2 groups of 4 would be 8, because this is 4 plus 4 plus 4 plus 4. And so 8, and my 8 is going to give me 16. So 4 groups of 4 is going to give me 16. Number 16, we know how to count by 5. So 9 times 5 would be 45 for number 16. So 9 times 5, or 5 times 9. And it's much easier to count by 5s than it is to count by 9s, so we can always use the other factor to help us find our product. Number 17 is 1 group of 4. 1 row of 4 is 4. We don't have any rows of 4 for number 18. So that tells us if we don't have any rows of 4, then we have 0. And 19 is going to be 2 groups of 10, or 2 rows of 10, and 10 and 10 is going to be, when we add that 2 rows of 10 together, we're going to get 20. On number 30, we can take a look at number 30, and it says, what is the total number of cereal bars he needs to buy? So let's read our directions for this part. It says for 30 and 31, use the table at the right for the supplies James needs to buy for the trail walk trip. So he's going to buy apples, he's going to buy cereal bars, and he's going to buy juice drinks. Notice how we have packages here. He's buying 2 packages or 2 groups of apples. He's buying 4 packages or groups of cereal bars, and he's also buying 4 groups or 4 packages of juice drinks. Now here in my next column, it tells me how many of these items are going to be in each package. So we know that when we have groups and we have an equal number in each group, this is an example of multiplication. So in this case, what is the total number of cereal bars he needs to buy? Well, we have 4 packages that he's buying, and he's going to have 6 in each. So if we use our multiplication of 4 times 6, 4 times 6 is going to give me 24. The next problem is asking for how many more apples than juice drinks does James need? So remember, when you hear the words how many more and the word than in a question, you know that you are comparing the difference between one greater amount to one lesser amount. So this means we have more apples than we do juice drinks. However, we need to know the difference between them. So that tells us that we are going to subtract the difference between the apples and the juice boxes or drinks. So we already know how many apples we have. We have 2 groups of 8, and that's going to give us 16. We have 4 groups of 3, which is 12. And if we look for the difference of 16 and 12, we are going to get 4 more apples than juice drinks. Martin studied slugs in science class. Okay, so Martin studied slugs in science class. It's like a snail, but without a shell. He learned that each slug has 4 feelers. That evening, he saw 8 slugs. So if you're picturing this, visualizing it in your head, you have 8 slugs in front of you, and you know that there are 4 feelers for each slug. So this is repeated addition, or it's multiplication, because you can add 4 plus 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 4. Or if we use our multiplication facts, 4 times 8, when I add up all those groups of 4, is going to give me 32 feelers in all. Please make sure to take part of your question and put it into your answer and explain your thinking. So your answer should sound something like this. Martin saw 32 feelers for all 8 slugs. Because if each slug has 4 feelers and I use repeated addition, I would add 8 groups of 4 and I would get 32 feelers in all. Now, that's just one way to explain it. There's other ways to explain it, but you need to have some way of proving or giving evidence to how you found your answer. 33 says, Lila had 9 weeks of rock climbing lessons. She had 4 lessons each week. Explain why Lila can use 4 times 9 to find the product of 9 times 4. Remember that when you use the order property, which means you can switch the factors and the product will be the same, you know that 4 times 9, and if you remember, inside of 9, if I have 4 groups of 9 here, inside of every 9 is a 4, and a 1. Right? 4, 4, and 1. 4, 4, 1, 4, 4, and 1. Now, if you think about this, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 groups of 4. And here, each one of these 1s that we had left over from that 9, we would end up having another group of 4. So that's 9 groups of 4. So within 9 is your groups of 4, and those are 9 groups of 4. So just something to think about. That's how you could prove that 4 times 9 is the same as 9 times 4. Number 34 says, which of these best describes the numbers on the shirts? 9 is an odd number. 18 is an even number. 27 is odd. So that is not something that is the same about those numbers. It says they are all even numbers, so we know that's not true. They are all multiples of 3. Well, that's a possibility. If we were to count by 3s, would we have 9, 18, and 27 as our multiples? Well, we could check. So we could say 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, we have 21, 24, 27, 30, 33. Well, if I look here, they are all multiples of 3. Well, let's see. Well, we have 9 here. When you counted by 3s, you had 18 and also 27. So we could say that these are all multiples of 3 because when I count by 3s, I will have 9, 18, and 27. So B would be your correct answer for that. So if you did it correctly, give yourself a star there. This is about Bess. She had boxes of candles. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 boxes of candles. That's groups. Each box had 4 candles in it. So that's 4 and 4 makes 8. Plus 4 more is 12. Plus 4 more is 16. Plus 4 more is 20. Plus 4 more is 24. So if we were using our multiples here, we could find out how many we would have for 6 groups of 4. Now they're looking for a pattern here. So we know that we would have, okay, well, we can't have 4, 6 because 4 plus 4 is 8. So it has to have an 8 in there. So we can eliminate C. We have 4, 8. 10 is not one of our multiples of 4 because we go 4, 8, 12. Here we go. 8, 12 would be 3 groups of 4. 16 would be 4 groups of 4. And 20 would be 5 groups of 4. So our parts of our groups that could show the numbers of candles in here would be A. So, thank you for checking your assignment on your page 146 and 147. Today you are going to be working in your practice book, and please make sure you watch the video of the instructions on what you will be doing for today in your practice book.